AWS Serverless architecture gives your team elastic scale and zero infrastructure to manage. But when the time comes for a SOC 2 Type 2 audit, that same flexibility creates a massive headache. Auditors require proof that your security controls operate effectively over an extended period. That is incredibly difficult to demonstrate when your compute infrastructure literally disappears milliseconds after executing a task. We are going to solve this by building a continuous compliance engine. Using AWS Audit Manager, we will automate your evidence collection and close the security gaps specific to serverless environments. To follow along, you need administrator access to your active AWS environment and a basic understanding of the SOC 2 Trust Services criteria. The Trust Services criteria are the 5 core principles: security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, and privacy that auditors use to evaluate your systems. By the end of this workflow, your compliance strategy will shift from a chaotic, manual fire drill into a disciplined, automated process. First, log into your AWS console and navigate to Audit Manager. From the dashboard, select the option to create a new assessment and choose the pre-built SOC 2 template. Next, we need to scope the assessment. You will select and map your specific serverless resources, like your active Lambda functions and API gateways, directly to the audit framework. If you are using the 2025 version of Audit Manager, you can leverage the Amazon Q integration. Amazon Q is a generative AI assistant that intelligently maps your resources to the correct trust services criteria, saving you from hours of manual spreadsheet tracking. Now, enable your automated evidence collectors. Activate the data streams for AWS Config and CloudTrail so they route directly into your Audit Manager hub. Once activated, your dashboard populates with incoming metrics. Each piece of data is automatically linked to its corresponding SOC control. With this pipeline running, your evidence is collected continuously. You completely eliminate the frantic evidence scrambling phase that happens the week before an audit begins. Traditional IT checklists rely on physical perimeters, like servers and network firewalls. Those do not apply here. In a serverless setup, your configurations and your code dictate your security posture. Let's review the 4 pillars of cloud-native readiness. A distinct role for every individual Lambda function, rather than relying on shared permissions. Pillar 2 covers logging. You need to enable CloudTrail to capture all API activity and configure those logs to store securely in an encrypted S3 bucket. Pillar 3 focuses on encryption. Verify that the AWS Key Management Service is actively encrypting all data within your S3 buckets and DynamoDB tables. Pillar 4 guarantees availability. Configure specific timeouts, retries, and dead letter queues for your Lambda functions. A dead letter queue is a designated storage area for events that fail to process correctly, ensuring no data is lost during an error. When you rely entirely on ephemeral compute, your identity permissions and configuration settings serve as your only true perimeters during an audit. Serverless audits often fail due to over-permissive access. Developers grant full access to get applications running quickly, inadvertently allowing functions to reach every sensitive resource. To find these vulnerabilities, run AWS IAM Access Analyzer. This tool actively scans your environment to detect any broad, unintended permissions that currently exist. Look closely at your JSON policy scripts for any wildcard characters, represented by an asterisk. You must replace those asterisks with specific Amazon resource names, or ARNs, which are unique identifiers for individual AWS resources. Next, secure your data at rest. You must enforce AWS config rules across your environment to guarantee that absolutely no S3 buckets are exposed to the public internet. Here in the S3 configuration console, check your encryption status. You must ensure all data is encrypted using Customer Managed Keys, or CMKs. CMKs are encryption keys that you create, own, and manage, providing a higher level of control over data access than default AWS keys. Proactively correcting these specific settings prevents minor configuration drift from snowballing into a major audit violation. Before the official SOC 2 window opens, you must execute an internal mock audit. This tests the integrity of the evidence pipeline you just built. Simulate a high-stress request from an auditor. For example, pinpoint exactly which user altered the IAM permissions on a production database last Tuesday. To answer this, use AWS Athena to query your CloudTrail logs or pull the specific control report directly from Audit Manager. Athena is an interactive query service that allows you to analyze data directly in Amazon S3 using standard SQL syntax. Your benchmark for this test is speed and accuracy. You need to retrieve the required evidence, complete with timestamps and tamper-proof hashes, in under 5 minutes. As a quick warning, configure S3 lifecycle policies to automatically archive your evidence logs after 12 months. Lifecycle policies are a set of rules that automatically transition your data to lower-cost storage tiers or delete it after a specified time to avoid inflating your AWS bill. If you can answer the simulated request within the time limit, you have proven that your continuous compliance engine is fully operational and defensible. You have now configured Audit Manager, implemented the Serverless Readiness Checklist, and permanently closed your IAM and encryption vulnerabilities. Your compliance posture is now an automated background process. It continually tracks your environment and requires zero manual intervention from your development team. Your next step is to generate your first SOC 2 assessment report in Audit Manager. Review the initial findings with your internal team and correct any remaining flagged resources. With this engine in place, you can enter your upcoming audit window with total confidence. Subscribe to the channel for more tutorials on securing and scaling your cloud-native operations.